Chair sees a quorum and will call the meeting to order. I think we'll start first with the introductions. So on my far left, if you'd please go ahead and right down the line here and introduce yourself, please.
Jessica Harmon with Legislative Services Agency.
Rachel Bibler, Fiscal Analyst for the Senate Majority Caucus.
Liza Sherman, Fiscal Analyst for the House Republican Caucus.
State Representative Bob Cherry, Greenfield, District 53.
Joe Habig, State Budget Agency.
Zach Jackson, I'm the Governor's Budget Director.
Ben Tooley, Fiscal Analyst for the House Republicans.
Jeff Thompson, State Representative, District 28, west of Indianapolis, about 20 miles.
Chris Garton, State Senator for District 45, Clark County, and a portion of Floyd.
Krista Ricci, Senate Republican, Fiscal Analyst.
Eddie Melton, Senate District 3, Gary Maryville, Hobart, Crown Point, Lake Station, and New Chicago.
Hope Tribble, Director of Fiscal Policy for the Senate Democratic Caucus.
Gregory Porter, House District 96, Indianapolis.
Eric Gonzalez, House Democrat, Fiscal Analyst.
Ed Delaney, House District 86, north side of Indianapolis.
Good morning, Fadi Kadura, Senate District 30, north side of Indianapolis.
Lisa Ackelberg, Indiana State Budget Agency.
Thank you. The minutes of the meeting in September at Purdue have been distributed. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes as distributed? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adopt the amendments or adopt the minutes as presented.
Make a second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimous. I believe next we have a proposed agenda for this meeting. It's been released also to the public. Are there any amendments to the proposed agenda? Hearing none, we'll then go to the proposed agenda. I believe first we have on the list is the Department of Administration. May come forward, please. Matt Kent.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the State Budget Committee. My name is Jeff Wedding. I am the Director of Operations for the State Psychiatric Hospital Network under the Family and Social Services Administration's Division of Mental Health and Addiction. I'm here today to discuss two appropriated projects needed for our state hospitals. The first project, as you alluded to, does involve FSSA working in conjunction with the Department of Administration to proceed with several demolition projects. These funds will go towards all phases of demolition, including any necessary design work, abatement, utility work, demolition, removal of building materials, and finally, site work, which will complete the demolition by converting the areas to green space. Logansport State Hospital and Madison State Hospital both have demolition projects that have been stalled due to funding issues. The demos in Logansport involve raising the Lynch Building, which is building number 17, the Livestock Building, which is building number 42, while demos at Madison involve raising Kemp Hall, or building 11, and Pillman Hall, building number 25. Each of these buildings are no longer utilized, nor are they viable assets for continued use by the hospital. They have deteriorated beyond repair or rehabilitation and currently have been vacant for well over 10 years. We are seeking the release of $3,018,010 appropriated for the FSSA project, along with $2 million from the State Demolition Fund for IDOA to ensure that these demolition projects can successfully proceed. The teams at Logansport and Madison are ready to begin working with the Department of Public Works as soon as possible upon release of these funds.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Thank you.
Okay.
I believe now we're ready for item number 2, which is Evansville State Hospital. Go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you. The second appropriated project that I am seeking today is for Evansville State Hospital to pursue the second phase of their riprap project. This project requires additional funding to continue installing riprap, chain link fencing, and degrade the lake banks at its campus. The project was previously included in repair and rehabilitation appropriations in fiscal year 2020. Phase 1 completed work on 2 of the 3 lakes on this campus. However, the rising cost and availability of stone as well as fencing material, prohibited this full scope from being completed. The project will fully address the erosion of the lake embankments, which do handle rainwater drainage, as well as increase safety for our patients, our grounds personnel, and visitors. We are seeking the release of $454,780, originally appropriated for this project, as well as previously approved state construction funds to total $620,000. Next steps to be completed will be with the help of the Department of Public Works and job order contracting. And happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe next on the agenda is item number 3, the State Museum and Historic Sites. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here and for your time, and thank you for your time yesterday. We certainly appreciate it. I'm here today to look for the release of several different sections. The first is our $1 million match, what we certainly are grateful for. We know, as some of you were at the Lanier Mansion, there's a walkway around the entire mansion that the public uses, and we'd like to get that repaired so that it's safe for anyone that's using it. At the Levi and Catherine Coffin House, which is near Richmond, we have a retaining wall that needs to be fixed, which is our accessibility ramp for the building. We have a siding on a historic barn, as well as we'd like to do a cultural landscape so that we have a good sense of all of the property there at Levi and Catherine Coffin. At the Limberlost State Historic Site, we need to repaint and restain the visitor center as it looks a little more worn than we would like it to, as well as we'd like to replace the windows in the sunroom of the Gene Stratton Porter home. And as you know, our windows all need to be hand-built and hand-glazed. At New Harmony, the Fauntleroy House needs to have some work done as a squirrel decided to join us in a not friendly way. And we need to mitigate the damage that was done both to the roof, as well as we have some drainage issues there at the front of the building. In Vincennes, we have a guest house up at Fort Knox 2 that we utilize for programming and supplies and storage that needs a new roof. And at the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites, we'd like to repair the audio-visual components in the gallery side of the museum that need to be updated, as well as we have received a $250,000 match from the Pulliam Foundation for our Ancient Seas exhibition. In looking at our state CR&R dollars, we would like to get dollars released for the Culbertson Mansion. We need to have an engineering study done and an archaeological study done in order to look at our moisture mitigation that's happening in the house. As you know, it sits right there on the river, as well as we would like to refinish the doors and the windows that, again, are all original to the house and need to be done in a historic manner. At the Lanier State Historic Site, we have an accessibility issue that needs to be fixed, and the brick needs to be taken care of. And then many of you were in the community house too at New Harmony yesterday, and the windows all need to be replaced again, hand-built and hand-glazed. Then in the second part of that, we have the Corydon State Historic Site that's in Corydon, Indiana. Many of you know is the first state capital. There are several buildings there that need to have be taken care of. The Capitol itself needs to have the roof replaced, which is wood shakes. So that is more than a normal roof replacement. The gutters need to replace, as well as the windows need to be taken care of. And because of that, we have some interior plaster damage that needs to be done. In the Governor Hendricks house, we would like to look at making sure that the gutters there are as well fixed, and the eaves taken care of, and the windows replaced, and then fix the interior where some of that damage has been done. And in the Porter Carriage House, we also have some water mitigation that needs to happen, as well as looking at taking care of some mold and moisture mitigation. And lastly, we have at several of our sites, all of the HVAC systems we believe probably were put in at a similar time because they're now all up to be replaced.
Thank you. Any questions on items 3, 4, and 5 on the agenda? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I believe next we have the Indiana State Fair Commission. Come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here to request the release of funding for 4 R&R projects on your agenda today. The first is for LED lighting enhancements, $2,325,400. This project does lighting enhancements for LEDs across our campus, primarily replacing 1,000-watt sports lights with LED sports lighting in the Indiana Farmers Coliseum, as well as replacing traditional fixtures in a number of our facilities, including the FFA Pavilion, the Glass Barn, the Harvest Pavilion, the Indiana Arts Building, among several others. The second item is for HVAC replacements across our campus for $1,739,100. This project replaces a variety of HVAC systems across the fairgrounds, including gas-fired heaters, electric heaters, rooftop units, condensing units, many of which are either in poor condition or have reached end of useful life. These projects will span across a number of buildings, including the Ag Hort Building, the West Pavilion, the Purdue Extension Building, the South Pavilion, the Indiana Arts Building, as well as several others. The third item on your agenda for the fairgrounds is the Blue Ribbon Pavilion roof replacement for $1.518 million. This replaces a 69,000 square foot EPDM roof on the Blue Ribbon Pavilion, installed in 1999, that's reached the end of its useful life and is beyond repair. The work will cover the A&E as well as the new roof for the project, and will have a useful life of 30 years. And the final item on your agenda is for electrical upgrades for $628,100. This project will replace worn and aging electrical systems and devices at various facilities across the fairgrounds. It includes the Indiana Arts Building, the Harvest Pavilion, the Communications Building, among several others on the fairgrounds.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding items 6 through 9 on the agenda? Representative Porter? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Just have a couple of questions in regards to the replacement of those LED lights. Are they contracted out, or will you purchase those lights to be installed by current employees?
We will bid those out.
So you have not bidded those out yet?
We have not bid those out yet.
Okay. Have any of these projects that you're requesting today been bidded out?
Not yet. No. The only piece of these projects that's been bidded out is the A&E for the Blue Ribbon the Blue Ribbon Pavilion roof replacement project.
So who has that?
Martin Riley is the architect, and that's the only portion that's been bid so far. The actual roof replacement part has not been bid yet.
And Martin Riley's from where?
Martin Riley is an Indiana company, and they have done our Coliseum roof as well as the West Pavilion roof in the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions on those items? Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe next we're ready for item number 10, Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of the committee. Kirsten Haney, CFO for Indiana Department of Natural Resources. So our first request is funding to make Next Level Trail Round 4 awards to grant awardees. $22.5 million will be made available for regionally significant projects and $7.5 million for locally significant projects. To date, the program has funded 75 projects for a total of $150 million. 75 miles of new trail have been built since the program's inception in 2018, with an additional 131 miles planned or under construction. Upon completion of each of these projects, the grant recipient will be responsible for the operation and maintenance of the trail. The applicants must submit a summary management and maintenance plan as part of the application process, and then these grant award winners will be announced in December of 2023.
Questions with item number 10? Okay, please continue with 11.
Right. Next, we're requesting funds for a technology project which would allow us to move to a software service model for our Unity database that went into production in the spring of 2019. So this database tracks nearly all operations of the Division of Water, including but not limited to permits, correspondence, violations, enrolled acts, billings, and contracts. So this current iteration is not a completed product. It's led to several bugs, service interruptions, interoperability by public users. The new model will allow for open communication, easier troubleshooting. This project will be fully implemented with the required features. It will fix existing errors, and then it will also ensure the Division of Water's data tracking and operations remain reliable.
Thank you. Any questions on item number 11? Thank you. Please go to 12 then.
Next, we're requesting funding to begin the construction phase of the NASB Dam repair project that had design fees released in October of 2020. The project will address the deficiencies of the structure, including seepage, spillway capacity, upstream and downstream embankment slope stability, concrete deterioration, structural, and embankment issues. These upgrades will ensure the dam is brought into compliance with current dam safety standards.
Questions on item number 12? Thank you. Go on to 13.
And then our last project today is for funding to upgrade the electrical service to 106 campsites at Clifty Falls State Park. We've experienced intermittent electrical failures in our existing service for over the last several years there, as the equipment was installed in 1998 and is aging. The current 30 amp service to the 106 campsites doesn't meet the needs of our today modern visitors and calls for upgrading to 50 amps. This will require digging through native rock to replace all old switch gears, wires, and pedestals across the state. Or across the site, excuse me.
Thank you. Questions on item number 13? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I believe next we're ready for item number 14, which would be the Indiana Department of Transportation.
Morning, Mr. Chairman,
Ahead,
members
please.
of the committee. Steve McAvoy, NDOT Statewide Facilities Director. We have 6 items on the agenda today. First one is a request for $950,000 to build 10 brine buildings at different locations across the state. So NDOT has a pretty robust brine making operation. And within these systems, water lines and controls need to be in heated, contained environment so they don't freeze during the winter. The brine is used in our winter operations to pre-treat road surfaces in advance of winter operations.
Questions? Item number 14. Thank you. 1 to 15, please, sir.
Next project, NDOT requests funding in the amount of $580,000 for the architectural and engineering fees for the construction of the Gary Unit 3-4 and the salt building. The existing Gary Unit 3 and 4 was built in 1965, and the salt building was built in 1979. Current unit does not have a fully functioning wash bay. There is no dedicated unit break room or locker rooms in the building. We cannot load and offload salt in the existing salt dome under roof. The new unit building and salt building will provide safe and efficient facilities and will mitigate all of these concerns.
Thank you. Questions? Item 15. Representative Porter, yes.
It's an ongoing conversation about these salt buildings.
Absolutely.
So how many more do we have to replace?
So we probably have close to 50.
50?
Yeah, we have like 110 or 112 statewide. We can only knock one or two down a year. So I've been here quite a few years, but we've got a few more years to go.
All right, thank you.
I can provide a list to you.
That would be wonderful. Just we know what's coming down
Absolutely.
through the pipe because we know it's coming.
Absolutely, and we also have quite a few units to replace too, so I'll include that in the list.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On item 16 then, please.
NDOT requests funding in the amount of $2,500,000 for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems replacement at the Indianapolis Traffic Management Center, which is next to the police post in Indianapolis. The TMC was built in 2004, which is 19 years old now. This is a 2-phase project which will replace aging mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems and also address some building envelope issues. Failure to do so would result in a non-functioning facility, which would then create the inability to monitor or control interstate traffic system controls, which would be a problem.
Questions on item 16? Please go to 17.
NDOT requests $6,139,732 to replace roofing on 45 buildings across the state. The average age of these roofs is 37 years, and they have reached the end of their useful lives. Many of these roofs are leaking and have reached their capacity. Replacing these roofs will extend the life of the cycle of the buildings. Some of the more complex flat roof membranes will be engineered by Martin Riley Mock or Martin Riley Architects and Engineers out of Fort Wayne prior to letting.
Hearing none, thank you. Please continue.
Number 18. NDOT requests $869,287 to repair or install new fencing, access control systems, and security cameras at various locations across the state. We have numerous unit or sub-district garage locations that have sites that are not secure. We also have various locations statewide that need a 24-hour access monitoring system. Security for our staff and our equipment is a priority for NDOT.
Questions on item number 18? Thank you. Go on to 19,
the
please,
last
sir.
request we have is a request for $951,029 to address general miscellaneous rehabilitation and repair work at 10 locations across the state. This would cover a wide array of projects such as oil water separator replacements, painting projects, lift replacements, storage building repair and HVAC replacements, some generator replacements, and office rehabilitation. All of these general repair projects will have a significant impact towards increasing operational efficiency or life cycle of our buildings.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
I believe next is item number 20, which is the Adjutant General Office, please. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. Hi. On behalf of the Adjutant General of the Indiana Army National Guard, I'm Colonel Kathy Eakin, and we have 5 capital spending requests for consideration today. None of these projects have been bid because we do need the release of funds in order to conduct the bid process. The first item up is that we are requesting funding to replace the roof at Tyndall Armory, which is located in downtown Indianapolis. This is a 4-story tall facility that has over 72,000 square feet and currently supports several organizations to include the Indiana National Guard's Facilities Management Office, Employment Services, Sexual Assault and Prevention, the USO, the National Guard Association of Indiana, and the 939th MP detachment. It's a law and order detachment. The portion of the roof is located on the 4th floor at the front of the building, on the west side of the building. It's 25 years old and covers over 5,600 square feet of administrative space. The roof currently leaks and it's been repaired numerous times, and unfortunately it's just past its useful life at this time and no longer under warranty. The current flat roof would be replaced by the new roof that is a total cost of $475,000. The state share to this would be $237,291 due to the agreed 50-50 cost share agreement between the state and the federal government.
Thank you. Any questions on item number 20? 21, please, ma'am.
Thank you. The next item is the Elkhart Armory HVAC and Controls. This 13,500 square foot facility currently houses Detachment 1 of 1438th Transportation Company and was built in 1964. It still includes the original HVAC system. Funding would be used to replace the HVAC rooftop units and systems controls. The state share to this project would be $201,654 due to the agreed 50-50 cost share between the state and federal government.
Thank you. Questions on item number 21? Please continue.
The next item we have for consideration is the Kessler Armory roof replacement. The Kessler Armory currently supports the 81st Troop Command, the SURF-P, the 135th Chaplain Detachment, and the 54th Security Forces Advisor Brigade Headquarters. The roof is 27 years old and it has reached the end of its useful life. The 30,290 square feet ballasted roof will be torn off and replaced with an updated roof system projected to last 20 years or longer. The state share to this would be $119,042 due to the 75% federal and 25% state share cost that's already been agreed to.
Thank you. Questions? Continue on, please, ma'am, with 23.
Our next item is the Building 15 roof replacement. Building 15 is located at Stout Field, where the Indiana National Headquarters is located. The 58,000 square foot facility currently supports the 127th Cyber Battalion, the Starbase program, and general storage. The existing roof is 32 years old and is no longer useful at this time. It's been repaired multiple times in the past, just as the others have been, and continues to have multiple leaks. This project would replace the current 24,780 square foot of flat roof projected, and it will be projected to last 30 years or longer. The state share to this project would be $366,885 due to the agreed 63% federal cost share and the 37% state cost share.
Thank you. Any questions? Please continue with 24.
Thank you. Our last item is Building 1 at Stout Field, which is our Indiana National Guard headquarters. It is a roof replacement request. This building currently supports the headquarters of the Indiana National Guard, housing over 200 people on a daily basis. This existing 41,709 square foot roof is 34 years old and was not replaced in 2012 during the renovation project because simply it didn't need it at that time. This project includes removal of the current roof and replacement with a roof which will be projected to last 30 years. The state share to this project would be $617,530 due to the agreed 63% federal cost share and the state's share at 37%.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have item number 25, Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. Morning.
Good morning, committee, chairman. The DLGF is requesting funding to replace our budget form application. The department launched the budget application within Gateway almost 10 years ago. The application facilitates the collection of budget data from 2,500 local units every year in the department's effort to certify the budgets of each local government. Because of the data technology used to develop the application and thus the difficulty to update the program, statutory changes and policy updates have become more difficult to implement and the application's effectiveness has degraded significantly. This refresh would transition the application to a user-friendly version of the budget application in Gateway compared to TurboTax or other online applications. This new version of the application would allow the department to reduce the amount of time local units spend to submit budget information accurately, increase the department's and the unit's ability to identify and troubleshoot issues, thereby decreasing the time invested in correcting problems with the data, improve the department's budget reporting capabilities to taxpayers, local officials, state legislators, and other interested parties, and then finally streamline the department's review of budget information, as well as continue to refine and improve the department's budget certification process.
Thank you. Any questions for the commissioner? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I believe next we have item number 26, State Department or State Budget Agency, Oregon Park. Former Senator Stemler, welcome. And while you're there, sir, it reminds me I called you a senator. I apologize. Former Representative
well,
Stemler.
That's the upper chamber, right? So
yes.
I got a promotion.
I wasn't going to say it.
And while I'm here, Senator, if you wouldn't mind, or Representative. Now, the third time will be bad, won't it, to make that mistake. I forgot to introduce a couple of representatives. Representative O'Brien and McNamara, I believe, are here. I wanted to at least acknowledge that. So please go ahead, Representative Stemler.
Thank you.
I got it the third time, didn't I?
Yeah, right. Good morning, and Chairman Thompson, Representative Porter, good to see you again as well. Senator Melton, thank you. And Majority Floor Leader Garden, certainly want to thank you. Representative Cherry, we spoke earlier, it's good to see you again as well. And Senator Cordora, I don't know that I've had the opportunity to meet with you yet, but it's nice to meet you. A lot of the staff members as well. So thank you for having me, and I know the message was brief, so I'll make some comments and then answer any questions. And sure. But my name is Steve Stemler, and it's quite the privilege to be on this side of the table from you today. I actually had the privilege of sitting on that committee at one time too, so to be here on this side of the table is quite the privilege, and it's great to see you all. Representative Delaney as well. So I'm here today as a board member of the River Heritage Conservancy District, which is the parent of Origin Park, which was listed in the budget. I first want to thank all of you that took the time last year to meet with me and others that were representing Origin Park. There was a lot of trust that was put in those meetings, and I committed to you that there would be 3 driving principles that I would promise to you if we were successful with the appropriation. And those were the transparency. We would operate totally under transparency, accountability, and of course your question of what's the return on the investment from the state. And I believe we have worked with you to accomplish this, and the staff as well with the budget agency. With the appropriation disbursement agreement that we have and the milestone payment target schedule that you all have in front of you as well. So I'm here today to request the release of the $37.5 million appropriation for Origin Park under those agreements. I would like to just take a few moments just to mention a few things in terms of the return on investment. I told already many of you that the advancement of this money has advanced our project by at least 10 years. And that's huge for cost savings and implementation of getting it up and running. Your investment has also allowed outside of development already. Properties already being purchased around it, and that's going to help as well in the area. National credibility. We have gotten national recognition and credibility because of your all's investment. And we're leveraging that for additional private philanthropic contributions. Professional services, and I want to state too as well, we are attempting and making it a priority for the projects that we are going to have Indiana workers, which is important to us and I know to you all as well. So I want to close by saying I'll answer any questions you might have, but the commitment we feel has been met, and we certainly appreciate your consideration of this, and I want each of you to know that I personally will honor the commitment that we made to you all the way through the project. Mr. Chairman, I'd mentioned to you we have another guest here with us that has traveled down, and you're kind enough, with your permission,
please,
to have our chairman of the River Heritage Board, Kent Lanham, say just a few words as well. Kent, you want to come say a few things?
Well, I'm not sure if I can have the same kind of requirements. I have not sat behind your chamber. I've never been up in Indianapolis as far as on the floor. So I do want to thank you all again for the trust that you all put into this project. I think we've have really shown what the value is to the state, particularly in this part of the state where we're in southern Indiana. This is one of the fastest growing counties in Clark County. It has got River Ridge going up as well. We expect us to increase the quality of life and place associated with that. It will also create, we've even had inquiries now in the area from the National Park Service for a monument study, national monument. So there's a potential for that whole entire river, the 2 miles that we've been talking about as part of Origin Park, could nationally become a national monument and then potentially an urban park, national urban park, probably 10, 15 years, but we got to build it first before they'll come. So we're in the process of that. So as Steve said, we thank you very much for it, and ask any questions you want of us. We are transparent as possible.
Thank you. Any questions for either gentleman? Representative Delaney?
Yeah, I don't know if this is working. I'd like to ask former Representative Stemler a question. And as he knows, I usually call you Bridges, but I'll call you.
I told Kent
I'll
that.
call
I
you.
said, the only one on there that's going to call me anything different is Ed Delaney. He's going to call me Bridges.
I'll explain later why I call him Bridges. I hope you do as well on this project as you did on the bridges. But what is the non-state revenue plan for building this project out? Other than our $30-some million.
For ongoing revenue?
Yeah, no, the capital costs, getting this up and running. What's your goal there?
Numbers, but a lot of it is private. We're leveraging Ed represented for a lot of the private donations, which again, the credibility has really catapulted us at, and philanthropic as well. Tremendous. And then we got a lot more on the side of the operational side once it's up and running, if you want to speak to me.
Yeah, sure, fine. No, we're in the process now actually of acquiring a lot of the property down there. We've just finished up all the appraisals on the properties themselves, making sure that we are doing the right thing for the landowners as well. We are in the process of working with philanthropic grants and requests. Those are still in the very earliest of stages. Our plan is still to finish this thing hopefully by 2028, so in time for the Olympic trials. We'd love to get the Olympic trials here. And we've been working with the State Sports Commission as well on this, so we expect that. And we're also going to have to add some contingency plans because, as everybody knows, the economy, can go either way. And so we will have to look at some type of potentially some type of bonding issues maybe down the road, something along those lines. We're still really early. We don't have the final cost and design structures yet, but we anticipate to have that within the next 12 months. But in the meantime, we got to buy the property, we got to get everything set up, and so forth. So that's where we're at now. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I think it's apparent that this is a way to get you kick-started.
No question. It's leveraging us, particularly with the national foundations and so forth. And again, this whole area, as we have shared with some of you all in the committee, it's a treasure trove for Indiana, but historically, economically, ecologically. So I mean, it's a great project.
Thank you. Thank you. Further questions? Mr. Chair. Yes, please, Senator Garden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to thank you, Kent, and you, Steve, for your steadfast commitment to Southern Indiana. Of course, you've both served in different capacities, and Steve, you've been on this side of the table, so you understand what this dynamic's like. But the amount of hard work, the amount of time, and just sweat equity that both of you have in this project so far has just been tremendous, and it's going to be a transformational project for the state, and really for the Midwest, not just Southern Indiana. And so if you could, just real quick, just for the scope of this project for this committee, speak a little bit about who's been retained to do this actual project. My understanding was the same folks that did Central Park in New York, is that right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Olin.
My hearing aids.
Olin, who's taken part.
Oh, okay, sure. No, again, I think just a real quick history lesson. This project actually started with the Regional Cities Initiative. And we, unfortunately, in Southern Indiana didn't participate in it, and I think this probably facility gained from our lack of participation in that back then. So this has been going on since 2014, 2015. And since that point, we came back and decided, why let that stop us? And so we decided as a group, we said, okay, we want to build, and I know people say this, a world-class park. And people say, well, it's going to be world-class, world-class. We literally put out an RFP to over 40 worldwide companies that do landscape, and Olin was one of them. Olin is one of those that is one of the top 3 in the world probably. They loved the project. I mean, you couldn't get any better because the day they came down to look, DNR was releasing a bald eagle on the shoreline. They had tears in their eyes because of that. They didn't understand that. And so this whole project is really between Olin, we've got a group called J&J Architects who have built multiple things as well. This is a $250 million project. And it's going to be probably 30% of which obviously you all have contributed to, but we're going to get the rest of it. And it's a conservancy. A conservancy is not people are used to it, but it is a private conservancy that works very similar. We're kind of like a quasi governmental thing, but we try to bring the private sector abilities into it. We look for the customer experience. We want to be able to regenerate funds. Centers like this, and we're going to be breaking ground next spring or summer, and hopefully we'll invite you all down there for our event center. That's going to hold about 350 people. Between those 2 projects alone, we're going to net anticipated between $3 to $4 million that will be put back into the park for operations. And so again, this is not something we want to keep coming back and back and back to the well. You guys are providing us the tools in which we can make this happen. Did that answer your question?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks again. Thanks,
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, I want to comment. Thank you, Representative Stimler, for your commitment to making this look positive on us. I do appreciate that, and know you carry through. I work with you, and I'm looking forward to what you're going to do for that part of the state. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for your trust.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Next, I believe we go to university projects, and Purdue has several, I believe, so if they come forward. And I believe the first university project's #1 there in West Lafayette. I believe they're all from West Lafayette. So go ahead and start with project #1, if you would, please.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ann Hazlett, and I serve as the Senior Director of Government Relations for Purdue. I am joined today by Jay Wasson, who is our Vice President for Physical Facilities, and Andrew Bean, our Associate Vice President for Finance. We have 10 projects today, and we wanted to be sure to get all of your questions answered. I'm going to start with the airport lease transaction. This is a 40-year lease between Purdue and University and Purdue Aviation, LLC. Purdue Aviation is a fixed base operator for the airport facility, and this requires them to manage fuel service, aircraft maintenance, aircraft rentals, and flight training for our flight students. The lease would occupy hangars 7 and 8, the fuel facility, and the land that they occupy. Purdue Aviation is responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep of the rented facilities through the term of the lease, and importantly, they are required to invest a minimum of $3.5 million in airport facility improvements within the 5 years of the beginning of that lease. Purdue Aviation is not part of Purdue. It is an LLC that is owned by Scott Neiswanger and the Purdue Research Foundation. This lease is revenue generating, and revenue generated from the lease will go towards addressing the airport's operational deficit. In fact, federal regulations require that the revenue that we generate from the lease be used for the airport operations or capital improvements. They cannot go back into the university general fund. Finally, I want to note that the length of the lease of this lease, the 40 years, is typical for these types of facilities based on a consultation that we had with an external legal counsel who specializes in aviation law.
Any questions? Item number 1. Go to 2, please.
Okay. Number 2, also dealing with the airport. This is looking at our terminal at the Purdue Airport, and it involves building a new 10,000 gross square foot terminal that will be adjacent to the existing terminal. The project includes space for ticketing and passenger screening, baggage claim, a waiting area, as well as new short-term parking and safety improvements. This terminal project was part of the Greater Lafayette Region's submission for the first round of READY dollars, and a new terminal that is TSA compliant is the main driver, our main interest in this project, because we need it to bring commercial air service back to the Purdue Airport. With this new facility, we'll be able to continue to have business-oriented service for Purdue, but this will enable us also to serve the broader community. We're hoping to land 1 to 2 regional airlines that will be able to serve the Lafayette region, and we're in active conversations with several regional airlines that then have relationships with larger commercial carriers. Even without commercial service, you might be interested to know that the Purdue Airport is currently the second busiest airport in the state. The cost of this project is $11.8 million in total. $7 million would come from READY, $3.3 million from gift funds, and then $1.5 million from federal grants.
Thank you. Any item number 2 questions? Please go to 3.
Okay, number 3 is one of our maintenance projects. This is looking at Grant Street parking garage. Here we have several structural repairs and maintenance activities on all levels of the Grant Street parking garage on the West Lafayette campus. This is one of our busiest facilities on the campus, and these are routine repairs, concrete work, sealant replacement, exterior masonry work, stairwell, window resealing, and tightening and replacing some of the guard cables. The cost is $2.2 million. It would come from auxiliary funds from parking.
Any item number 3 questions? Please go to 4.
Okay. Number 4 is our Hillenbrand Residence Hall project. This is the construction of a new 252,000 gross square foot residence hall. It will be physically connected to the existing Hillenbrand dorm, and this houses our Honors College students. This structure would include 8 stories and create 896 new beds for our first-year students. These new beds would be pod style. On a pod style floor, there's usually a large study room, several small study rooms, a social lounge, and shared bathrooms. The rooms in a pod style floor can be a mix of single, double, and triple, and they're then clustered around these shared amenities. The Hillenbrand project, beyond the beds, also includes expanding the Hillenbrand Dining Hall by 300 seats. This was get us to 800 seats in that facility total. And finally, this project will include new academic space for the data mine. For those of you who aren't familiar with the data mine, this is an interdisciplinary, living, learning, and research-based community that is really focused on data science and helping promote data science throughout campus. The data mine students are able to really develop some of the data science skills that we know are needed in the workforce for our state, and we have corporate partnerships with more than 40 companies that allow students to work to help collaborate on some of the real-world problems that companies face in the data space. The Hillenbrand South project will help really address some of the on-campus housing demand and existing waiting lists that we have. Since 2013, student enrollment has increased by 31%. And because freshmen have priority for on-campus housing, as that incoming class size continues to get bigger, there are now fewer available spaces for some of our older students, our students in their sophomore and junior years. Last academic year, we turned away 1,800 sophomores who wanted to continue to live in a residence hall. The cost of the Hillenbrand South project is $149 million. It will be funded by non-fee replaced debt.
Thank you. Item number 4 questions. Representative Delaney.
Is this a change in direction for student housing? I'm going to be fairly loose with my language, but we had the impression that we were getting into elegance and fancy quarters and so forth. Are we moving away from that with this pod system?
I'm going to ask Jay to address that.
Sure. So I believe the pod style typology is kind of a modernization of what we would refer to as traditional housing. Again, we talk about at Purdue that we academicize our residence halls. We don't amenitize them. So no lazy rivers, climbing walls, those sorts of things. But again, these shared facilities that are out on the floor, we find particularly for first-year students, helps them build their social networks off of their phones, actually human-to-human contact. And as Ann indicated, with the learning community being part of the dorm, many of these students are in class together. They have group projects together, and so it gives them space to do that academic work outside the classroom as well.
Will this tend to drive down the cost of the residence cost for our students as compared to some of the structures we've been building recently?
Sure. So we've not had an increase in our room and board rates at Purdue since 2012 or 2013. And again, part of it is through the efficiency that we'll see with this type of layout. Again, with having the shared restroom facilities is one example, as opposed to every room having their own restroom. Those are lower MEP costs associated with that type of construction.
Thank you.
Further questions? Item number 5, please, then.
Okay. So that takes us to our nursing and pharmacy education building. This was our top capital request in the 2023 budget and in the previous budget session. This project will construct a 186,000 gross square foot facility to house our School of Nursing and our College of Pharmacy. These programs are now spread across 4 different buildings, and that's not conducive to how we want students to learn and faculty to be able to work together. So as we're able to bring them all under this one new entity, we will also be demolishing 4 aging buildings as part of this project. That new building will provide modern clinical, instructional, student support, and research space, as well as locate these important programs together. Research and support spaces for animal testing will also be included, and this is very important to maintaining our competitiveness in getting federal research dollars and recruiting top faculty talent. We also feel strongly about this project because of the healthcare workforce needs that we see in Indiana. Nearly 70% of Purdue's nursing graduates practice in the state. Over 60% of Indiana pharmacists are Purdue grads, and enrollment will be able to grow in both of these programs as a result of the new building. We'll see a 10% increase in pharmacy and a 36% increase in nursing compared to our fall 2021 numbers. The cost of this project is $160 million, $89 million from the state, $45 million in gift funds, and $26 million in the operating funds reserves.
Thank you. Any item number 6 questions? I'm sorry, number 5 questions. Seeing none, please go to number 6.
Okay, number 6 is the Southeast Purdue Agricultural Center. This will involve the construction of a new 7,200 gross square foot building consisting primarily of farm equipment maintenance shop, office space, and a conference room. We really need this space to support current and future agricultural research collaboration among several campus-based departments as well as Purdue Extension. The structure that we have, the existing structure is aging and it does not meet current agricultural research needs, and it would also be costly to repair and maintain. The cost of this project is $3.6 million. $2,562,000 coming from gift, and then $1,038,000 coming from operating funds.
Thank you. Any item number 6 questions? Please go to number 7.
Okay, number 7 is our Sheely Hall roof replacement. This will replace the approximately 18,000 square foot roof on Sheely Hall. This is within the Windsor Residence Hall complex, also on the West Lafayette campus. The existing roof materials will be removed and replaced with material in kind while completing some isolated masonry repairs located along the roof line. The cost of this project is $2,050,000, and it would come from auxiliary funds, housing and dining.
Thank you. Any item number 7 questions? Number 8, please, then.
Number 8 is our Shreve Hall electric enhancements. This will enhance the electric distribution system currently located in the Shreve Residence Hall. This is also on the West Lafayette campus. This will involve installing 2 new transformers to replace existing transformers, as well as replacing our main and secondary electrical distribution equipment. In order to allow students to reside in the building and to accommodate some longer lead times for new equipment, we need to stretch this out across 2 summers. We're hoping to do this summer of 2025 and 2026, and the cost of this project is $4.4 million. This would come from auxiliary funds, housing, and dining.
Thank you. Any item number 8 questions? Number 9, please.
Number 9 is our University and Schliemann Hall strategic transformer replacement. This project will replace and enhance the electric distribution system that serves University and Schliemann Hall on the West Lafayette campus. The existing shared transformer and related equipment will be replaced, and 2 new individual transformers supporting equipment and wiring from the transformers to the buildings will be installed. The existing electric distribution equipment is past its expected life and is not meeting the current needs. Here we are looking at a cost of $3.2 million, and the money would come from our operating funds.
Any item number 9 questions? Number 10, please.
Okay, and number 10, our final project. This is our Weatherell lab drain and supply lane replacement. This is in our chemistry lab, and this is the first of a planned 4-phase lab drain replacement. We're looking at the potable and lab water supply piping systems, and the plumbing equipment that is associated with those systems need to be replaced in the basement. The plumbing equipment includes water heaters, water softeners, wastewater equipment. They're all at the end of their service life and need to be replaced. Here we're looking at a cost of $2.1 million, and this money would be coming from our R&R appropriation.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I believe next we're ready for Indiana State University, and you have project number 11. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Thompson and members of the committee. Indiana State University seeks approval for a $66 million renovation of our technology annex with limited improvements in the connected Myers Technology Center. This project has a total gross square footage of 175,363 gross square feet. The project was authorized by a cash appropriation by the Indiana General Assembly as a part of the 2023-25 budget bill. The renovation of the technology annex into a Center for Technology, Engineering, and Design represented our #1 capital priority request. In fact, it was the only request that the university proposed for funding. Constructed in 1980, the technology building houses in the Myers Technology Center houses various academic programs in the Bailey College of Engineering and Technology. This project will include the complete replacement of outdated and obsolete mechanical and electrical systems and repair and rehabilitation of exterior building components. A STEM addition is also planned to allow for improved class laboratory space equipped with advanced technology to ensure our graduates are well equipped to meet the workforce needs of the region and the state of Indiana. The STEM addition will also have a new main accessible entry at grade to improve accessibility for students, faculty, and visitors. The work in the Myers Technology Center will be limited to improving heating, cooling, and ventilation systems and the renovation of the lower level of the building to house aviation and flight simulation teaching laboratories. It is anticipated that construction will begin during the summer of 2024 with a completion date of late 2026, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I believe that's the end of the projects, and we're now ready to go into the review items. And first we have the Family and Social Services Administration. I believe you have 5 different ones. Let's start first with the adult vaccine coverage, if you would please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Cora Steinmetz, and I'm the Director of the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. I'm joined today by the Family and Social Services Administration Chief Financial Officer, Paul Bowling. The first state plan amendment we are bringing forward today, is an attestation state plan amendment. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 required states to cover adult vaccinations in the Medicaid program at no cost share. Indiana Medicaid already covers vaccination without cost share. This state plan amendment simply attests to our compliance with the federal requirement.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead then to the next item, number B, I believe.
Thank you. The second item is a home and community-based services waiver transition. As part of the agency's transition to manage long-term services and supports and the launch of our Indiana Pathways for Aging program on July 1st, 2024, certain changes to our existing waiver programs will be made to improve alignment across programs for members and providers. The age and disability waiver will transition out of the Division of Aging. Individuals 60 years of age and older will join the Pathways program, and those 59 and under will be transitioned to a new waiver, the Health and Wellness waiver, under the direction of our Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services Division.
Thank you. Any questions? Next item, please.
Thank you. Our third item is a dental rate state plan amendment. This is a rate adjustment for dental providers across the Medicaid program. It brings together 3 separate pieces of rate work into a single amendment. First, the HIP equalization project that required the Medicaid program to equalize rates across our various Medicaid programs. Second, an overall rebasing of dental rates by individual service took place. Previously, some of dental services were reimbursed at a very high % of charges and some quite low. Given the HIP equalization work, we took this as an opportunity to group services by category and incentivize policy priorities, including championing preventative services. Finally, in partnership with the legislature in last budget session, we were pleased to make a $30 million annual investment in dental services, which equates to approximately a 10% rate increase. This state plan amendment encaptures those 3 different rate setting activities. The entire process was provider informed. Over 14 meetings were hosted with a diverse group of dental providers who had the opportunity to react to feedback and provide input on our methodology. These rates would go live on January 1st.
Thank you. Any questions? Continue, please.
Thank you. The 4th state plan amendment is in regards to durable medical equipment. This is our 2nd phase of the DME rate update. Additional work with stakeholders was required following the 1st phase that occurred several years ago. These remaining DME rates will now be set at Medicare, and for codes that do not have a Medicare rate, the rate will be 130% of Medicaid. This is another item encompassed in the HIP equalization project and part of our compliance plan with CMS. These rates would also go into effect on January 1.
Thank you. Questions? Last item, please.
Thank you. The final state plan amendment is rate setting for ABA services. ABA services are applied behavioral analysis therapy services for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. When Indiana Medicaid first covered these services in 2016, limited data existed on which to base a rate. That methodology instead was set to reimburse providers at 40% of billed charges. OMPP is now moving to establish rates for ABA services. Using provider cost survey data, initial rates were shared with providers in August. At that time, providers offered feedback, resulting in an upward adjustment of these preliminary rates, with the predominant rate for ABA services increasing 20% from the initial rate to these final rates. Implementation of these rates will result in predictability for providers and sustainability for the Medicaid program. These rates would also go into effect on January 1st.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Representative Porter?
Discussion.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. What are the rate are you talking about, ABA reimbursement?
Yes, the primary code for ABA reimbursement is the service provided by a registered behavioral technician, code 97153. It makes up about 85% of the expenditures in the Medicaid ABA program. That rate is set to be $68.24 an hour.
Do you feel like that rate is sufficient according to 91753?
I think that we believe that this rate is informed based on the provider cost survey data that we used, using the wage and salary information that we collected from providers. In our initial rate, we included a 15% administrative overhead. We heard from providers that that was not sufficient, so we've increased that overhead to 20%. And we also heard feedback from providers that this rate did not, our preliminary rate did not account for a supervision requirement that the providers providing this particular service are subject to. So we also increased that to include the supervision amount.
I believe that $68.24 rate is not sufficient, and particularly when it comes to expanding services for ABA, particularly with minority communities and those communities in suburban area, rural communities. I think that, just in July, in Medicaid, we reverted over $500 million, back to the general fund. And you've also, the budget agency also have given dollars to hepatitis C to address the need for the Department of Corrections. And I'm very concerned that we will not meet the needs of individuals within the state of Indiana, particularly minorities and rural and suburban communities, because I think, I know there's some bad actors, okay, we know that. However, I don't think that it should be so prescriptive and punitive in regards to that. I know you went up to 20%, and you and I talked, and you've had conversations. Let's be full disclosure with probably everybody on this committee. I was pushing for 25% or even 30%. But I propose that we look at another $4, which is only $5 million when we revert back $500 million for those services. And I know we talked about the inflation rate, Mr. Chairman, but I'm just very concerned about the access for people, for minorities, and to expand the program and take care of people in the state of Indiana. And I just like to see go up to another $4, which is not, in the scheme of things, it's not a whole lot of money. When you look at it, it's kind of dust of $5 million versus $500 million or more back into our coffers for our budget.
Quick question, did you account for anything on inflation at all?
We did. So based on the cost survey data that we collected, we applied a 5% annual inflation adjustment for the 2 years to catch up since the data was collected, or I should say the year in which that data represented. So we did account for an inflationary adjustment.
Thank you. Senator Cadora?
Thank you, Quorum. First, I appreciate your team. We met last week and we went through the details, so I'm always appreciative of your responsiveness. I have two questions. I wanted to tag along the inflation and cost of living adjustment. So you already incorporate that in the analysis leading up to the $6 to $8.24. Have you included that on a move forward basis similar to the home health based services as far as adjusting those rates on an annual basis, or do you have to come back to the General Assembly and the Budget Committee for future approvals?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So this particular service category will go into our rate matrix approach, and so we will provide ongoing updates to the Budget Committee as it is included in the rate matrix. To that point, now that the initial rate has been, or we are in the process of setting this initial rate, there will be a 2% inflationary adjustment applied each year until the next time this service category is up for a full actuarial review, methodology, potential methodology changes or updates to the rate 4 years from now. So each year there will be a 2% inflationary adjustment on an ongoing basis.
I appreciate that. The second question, when you and I met and we looked at the management overhead versus the hourly rates for employees, I brought up the point that home health services went through it was a crisis where most workers were not paid enough on an hourly basis. So we ended up seeing employees leave the profession, and then management organizations decided to really leave the field as well. So I'm not in favor of going to 30% or 35% or 40% in supporting management overhead. But what I've heard from some providers as recent as 2 hours ago is that in rural communities, and as Representative Porter mentioned, in some urban communities where minorities are, the cost of doing business is more expensive than some other communities. Once the Budget Committee today consents to the agenda and it moves forward, really there's nothing left for the General Assembly to influence that decision. Are there any assurances that you can give the public, aside from legislative action next session between now and December, that more meetings, more discussions might take place to address, I think what we're hearing is that management companies are saying, give us $4 or $5 more on the administrative piece. So that will still be a significant savings to the state of Indiana from paying $91 or $101 if you go from $6 to $8 to $71 or $72. Is there a middle ground to reach a win-win by which you have most of these providers working in harmony with FSSA to get to that middle ground?
Thank you for that question. So I think that throughout our rate setting process, we're very committed to doing all of these rate setting activities in a transparent and provider informed manner. So we certainly are happy to continue to receive feedback in that regard. And I'm sorry, did that answer your other question regarding, was that the gist of your question?
It's the gist of it is that once the committee is done today, it's really left to FSSA versus the providers, and then legislators, if they're not happy with the relationship, they will come back in January, even though it's not a fiscal session or a budget session, and they might be concerned that we might hear that providers are checking out of the state of Indiana, or not enough, kids are not having enough workers to provide services. Your team has been very professional, very responsive. I enjoy working with you, and I trust that when you make a public commitment, you follow through. So I just want to be sure that you're taking our feedback seriously, that we're hearing from folks after we met that are saying, we understand we don't want to go to 101. We can't go back to $91, but can we go back to at least to 72? I have a document in front of me from one of the providers saying if we operate below the $76, we're going to go into a crisis mode. So I just urge you to continue doing the work that you do. If you can get to that $71, $72, $73, I think you'll have more buy-in from some providers. But I appreciate your service, and I look forward to continue to support your efforts in that space.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a somewhat different perspective. I'm comfortable that you're trying to get the right number here, but I'm more interested in the students, the children that are affected. And in the course of our conversations, I became concerned as to the qualifications of the people providing the services. This is a growing awareness of autism and the spectrum related to it, growing awareness of the needs, growing concern by parents. What are we doing to make sure that we have adequately trained people delivering a service that is the best service? And related to that, how does this relate to special ed and our school systems? I think we need to get a really deep look at this. I'm willing to struggle along with the current system, but are you looking into the core idea of whether we have adequate training, adequate numbers of people coming into these professions? That's my basic question.
Thank you for that. And so within the scope of just the Medicaid program, I would say that we are looking at sort of clinical criteria as sort of the next phase in this regard around just like we would any other service. And so again, that's only for the payer, when the payer is Medicaid would be the scope of that particular review. But I think those are things that we will continue to explore, hopefully once we have sort of a consistent and predictable rate in place that we can then turn our attention there.
You would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, committee, I make a motion that we move from $68.24 up to $72 in code 91753, move it to $72 an hour to address the minority expansion in underserved areas in the state of Indiana and our children.
I believe that motion is out of order for this regard. I think we need to remove that from the agenda is more appropriate, that we don't have the authority to do that. And so I would entertain a motion, of course, to remove that from the agenda. But the chair won't accept a change. To me, that's more a policy thing they can bring back if we take it off the agenda. Thank you.
No, I think it's something that's needed was supposed to be on agenda last month. It wasn't. Don't want to be seen. I want to be solution oriented, not obstructionist, and I would not be put in the situation I've been put in before of being an obstructionist. But I'm very concerned about it, and I learned from a long time ago. We can talk here and say, in no deference to anyone here, that we're going to work on it, but a lot of times in the work from the administrative branch does not trickle down to us at the legislature. The three branches don't necessarily work together, and it's happened more frequently than not, and I'm very concerned about that.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I believe next on the agenda we have the City of Fishers, creation of a professional sports and convention center. Mayor, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Scott Faddis, Mayor, City of Fishers. I realize you're nearing the end of your agenda, so I will make my remarks brief. We were fortunate enough to work with the state legislature this last session to enable legislation to allow for the City of Fishers to apply for a professional sports designation area. This is in relation to a $170 million facility that the City of Fishers is currently under construction. It will house the Indy Fuel, as well as just this week we announced an indoor football league for Central Indiana that we're very excited about. The overall debt associated with this project is about $11 million. And we were fortunate enough to work with the legislature to allow for us to capture what we believe will be the incremental growth of up to $2 million of sales and income tax in a designated area. We are very encouraged that we see nearly $500 million worth of new development in the form of hotels, restaurants, corporate office space, and other amenities in this area. And we believe this will be a catalyst not only for the City of Fishers, but our entire Central Indiana region. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the committee has in regard to this project as we move forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I believe next we have Indiana Department of Health. And local public health funding is the topic. Please go ahead.
Committee members, my name is Lindsay Weaver. I'm the State Health Commissioner for the Indiana Department of Health. I first want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the plans and implementation of SBA 4 and the new public health funding. We are greatly appreciative for your support of this legislation and the insight and direction you have given us for implementation. So you guys will all have received some PowerPoints there, as well as some information about your specific counties. So I've moved to the slide that says SBA 4 and HEA 1001 at the top. So as a reminder, HEA 1001 appropriated $75 million in fiscal year 2024 and $150 million in fiscal year 25 for local public health. This was an increase from $6.9 million that was shared among our 92 counties for the last 20 plus years. Additionally, funding was appropriated for a statewide trauma system development and quality improvement. The newly established Trauma Commission will meet next Friday and begin to establish how that funding will best be utilized to accomplish the goals laid out in the legislation. Funding was also appropriated to EMS readiness, and that is being managed by the Department of Homeland Security. And lastly, funding was appropriated to be used to maintain a state strategic stockpile. SBA 4 established a process for counties to opt in and increase funding, defined core public health services, and made changes to the local health board appointments. Next slide. So we are calling this new health initiative Health First Indiana. This is a first of its kind investment in public health, and we are putting health first and moving into the space of prevention. And we all recognize that our health and being healthy is vital to our success in business, education, and our life. Next slide. Together, we are investing in the future of Indiana. This funding and legislation has brought together communities, including state and local elected officials, healthcare leaders, schools, businesses, community, and organizations and citizens to evaluate their local needs and then brainstorm solutions. Our businesses and economic developers have some of the most enthusiastic response to this funding and legislation. We have heard stories from communities that told us they had lost out on potential businesses coming to their community simply because of the poor health metrics. The mere act of investing in public health recognizes the challenges that we have, but shows that Indiana is taking action. Next slide. As always, our goal is to be transparent and forthcoming with information, updates, tracking, and accountability, and therefore we have developed a website. It's healthfirstindiana.com. On there, we have an opt-in map as well as a county health scorecard. We're continuing to meet with elected officials across the state and really support or really appreciate the support of our local elected officials associations. We're in the midst of a 92 county tour, and we'll be visiting our 23rd county, Vanderburgh, this afternoon, where we're learning about the unique challenges as well as solutions that our counties are coming up with. We're using that information to take it to other counties so that we're sharing the information. Next slide. This is what our opt-in map looked like. As you know, our counties had till September 1st to opt in. 86 of our 92 counties ended up opting in, with the exception of Wells, Whitley, Fountain, Johnson, Crawford, and Harrison, as you can see on that map. If you go to our website and you click on individual county, on the next slide you can see we will show how much funding that county will receive in 2024, how much they had received in years prior, as well as how much they would receive in 2025 if they would continue to opt in. It also shows you the legacy funding that the counties who opted out, how much they will be receiving this year. In all, 6.5 million Hoosiers, representing 96% of the state populations, are covered by a county that has opted in to enhance public health funding. As I mentioned, 86 counties have opted in, with a total of 74.6 million. Those other counties received their legacy funding, which was $387,000. So the funding that they did not receive by not opting in got redistributed to the other counties who did opt in. With this funding, the local public health services have include things such as tobacco prevention cessation, chronic disease prevention, trauma and injury prevention, referrals to clinical care, maternal and child health. These are new spaces for our locals to be digging into, recognizing where their specific needs are, and identifying opportunities for improvement. We have developed an Indiana County Health Scorecard. Right now we started with 7 health metrics, including life expectancy, infant mortality, smoking rate, and obesity, to name a few. We ranked the counties 1 to 92 so they all can see exactly where it is that they stand and gave them what their specific metric is. If you're interested, this is again on our website. You can click on a county, on an individual county, and see what all the specific metrics are there. My example that I have in the slide deck that I think some of you have and maybe some of you don't, is Miami County. So for example, Miami County is ranked 92nd for obesity with an obesity rate in their adults of 40%. While we were visiting Miami County, it struck me that as discussing this particular metric, it was a police chief who rose his hand and said, I know what the problem is. There's a whole part of our community that is shopping at a convenience store. The conversation then moved to where a woman who is on the council there, but also helps run the locals farmer market, they began to brainstorm ideas about how they could get fresh fruits and vegetables to that part of the county. This truly is a whole community solution. The state is also providing support with their subject matter experts with data analytics, so counties know exactly where it is that to identify exactly where there are problems and where they need to focus their attention and their funding. Our subject matter experts are hosting district meetings so they can share with the counties what evidence-based programs already exist in Indiana or nationally that they could look to implement. We're helping them form those private-public partnerships and bringing together clinical health care and community partners with the local public health. We're also recognizing where there's opportunity for shared resources. So another example is 2 counties have seen an increase in tuberculosis cases. They don't have the caseload individually to have someone specifically do the case management for tuberculosis. Those 2 counties are working together to have one person manage cases between those 2 communities. And of course, we are providing consultation and support for their budgeting and contracting, which is new to many of these counties. There is accountability and transparency, of course, with this legislation. The counties are required to submit an annual financial report before funding is dispersed each year. The county fund includes the LGF and SBOA oversight. Local health departments will be required to submit an annual report demonstrating how the dollars were spent, and then semi-annual reporting on key performance indicators. We have developed preliminary key performance indicators for the state, and those will be on that website by the end of the year. And as a reminder, the counties must develop their own local key performance indicators by the end of 2024. So we'll be working with them from a data perspective to do that. We have reviewed all of the budgets submitted and ensured that they are meeting the statutory requirements. So as a reminder, no more than 10% could be spent on capital expenses, and at least 60% of the funds were to go to health outcomes of the core public health services, so the more health outcome-related core public health services, and no more than 40% of the funding was to be spent on regulatory. There was a waiver that allowed counties to go over that 40% if they needed to. No counties have submitted a waiver. In fact, 78% of this funding is going towards prevention and health outcome core services, and only 22% of it is going to regulatory. 66 of our counties are partnering with community agencies in the first year to provide core public health services. This includes off-site clinics, purchasing mobile clinics, partnering with hospitals, community paramedicine programs, providing fitness and nutrition through the YMCA and Purdue Extension, for example, purchasing AEDs that they're putting in schools and county buildings, providing car seats and car safety, sleep sacks, cribs, and safe sleep education. So, for example, St. Joe County is granting out a significant amount of their funding in order to invest in chronic disease prevention and maternal and child health. Clark County is working with 2 FQHCs to assist in bridging the gap in pregnancy care. And Floyd is also partnering with Family Health Services to provide maternal child health needs, prenatal care, and substance use disorder treatment. So local implementation. Next steps is that those state funds will be distributed to the counties on or just after January 1st. And then, like I mentioned, we will be working with the counties to work on their KPIs. They'll have to report on the state KPIs by midsummer of next year. The counties may issue grants and contracts to local partners, and we are encouraging that and, again, helping them become aware of all the community partners within their organization, providing guidance on those contracts. New positions and new contracts paid through HFI funding that provide core public services must be posted publicly for 30 days. That was a part of the legislation. So we are working on creating a centralized website for job postings. So all of the counties would put those on the state centralized website, so anybody who, for example, is maybe a lead case manager and is looking for a job can go to that website and look to see who has posted for that specific job. It will kick back out to the county, but we are excited, and as are the counties, about that centralized website. We did grandfather in our 3 existing municipal health departments, Gary, East Chicago, and Fishers, and they are working with their counties to distribute the funding. Just to give you a couple examples of our key performance indicators, our approach this first year is to acknowledge that we are starting at the bottom and we have nowhere to go but up. So our key performance indicators this year is about identifying leading causes of, for example, trauma and injury, a leading cause of chronic disease, and then implementing a specific program to address that leading cause. We hope to quickly move from these program building key performance indicators into very specific metric key performance indicators. So our first example is trauma and injury prevention. Number of counties that identified a leading cause of injury or harm in their community and then implemented a comprehensive evidence-based program or activity for prevention. This is new work. Just having the counties take that scale back and look and see what really is a leading cause of trauma and injury in their community and then implementing a program is novel for many of our communities. Just for an example, when we were in Fishers, they talked about falls in their senior communities and how it's important to go into seniors' homes and identify fall risks. So in 2022, 194,000 ED visits were for falls in Indiana, 194,000. Based on national hospital cost estimates, preventing 9,500 to 45,000 falls, and the wide difference there is based on the programming that you're implementing could reduce healthcare costs between 94 and 442 million annually here in Indiana. So this work will make a difference. Access and linkage to clinical care, key performance indicator, is the number of local health departments engaging with local and state delivery systems to address gaps and barriers in healthcare services. So examples, Owen County assisting with transportation to healthcare-related appointments in pharmacies, Porter County hiring a care coordinator to help link patients to care, providing a warm handoff and follow-up, Clark County implementing a mobile health team in paramedicine for the community, and Hancock County developing MOUs with the local transit service and community dental service. In 2022, there were 10,000 ED visits due to stroke in Indiana. The estimated healthcare cost for a stroke patient is anywhere from $71,000 to $140,000 per patient. For another example, Knox County is implementing a program where they are putting blood pressure cuffs across their entire county to help people make sure that they are getting screened for high blood pressure. Just this last weekend, they identified 4 people who had undiagnosed hypertension, and by this time this week, the Knox County health officer told me their high blood pressure is already under control. So again, these are 4 people that we could have potentially prevented a stroke in. So future planning, in the end of my presentation, we are developing a platform for electronic submission of budgets and KPIs. This time next year, I want to be able to come to you and say 10% of the funding went to maternal child health care, 5% of the funding went to maybe administrative costs, and really get into the details of what it is that you need. Also, we want our counties to be able to update us on their KPIs regularly and how the money is getting spent so we can be transparent, and all that will be on our website. We're utilizing data to track that long-term impact on those health outcomes and partnering with the IU Fairbanks School of Public Health to have a local health department boot camp. So we're training all of our health officers and our administrators, and we had our first session yesterday. Our subject matter experts are reaching out to our 10 poorest performing counties in each of those health metrics so that they can have additional and specific help and education so that we can see those health metrics improve. Thank you.
Thank you for a very thorough presentation. Senator Cordora?
Thank you for your presentation. I always enjoy working with your agents and your staff. I appreciate the data-driven approach, the scientific approach. I'm all in supporting you. One question on the infant mortality issue, and you referenced it. Is it working? I don't think these microphones are working. No, sorry.
You need to project.
All right.
I can hear you.
I have to channel my inner Greg Porter for a second. But on the infant mortality issue, you mentioned we're at the bottom, and this is a chronic issue. It's been going on for years and years and years. I hope that the partnership with the local counties will be able to help us maybe address some of those preventable deaths. But how optimistic are you that with the funding, with the new strategy, working with county by county, how many years, what time is going to take, what is going to take for us to get from the bottom of the nation as far as infant mortality to get to a better place to protect our kids?
I'll first off say that all of these metrics to move nationally is going to take time. This truly is an investment in our future, but we are confident we'll be able to show improvement in local outcomes as soon as the end of next year, that we'll be able to start to see those micro improvements. But when you're talking about changing big metrics, big numbers, that will take some time, but we have to take the steps. I will say the brilliance of this legislation and what I'm personally so excited about as our locals is the ability to pivot. So I think in the past we've often implemented programs and did the same program over the entire state, but we know that doesn't necessarily work. As we dig in more in the data with our locals, we see that their individual needs truly are different. So if you look at different zip codes with high infant mortality, in one zip code it was safe sleep. In another zip code it was substance use disorder in the mom, so the babies are getting born early. So implementing the same program there doesn't make any sense. And so our counties are able to really specifically zero in and do what it is that they need. And I'll say our locals know those answers. They know what they need to do, and they have the community partners there to do it. And again, because of this funding and its flexibility and the locals have the control over it, if it's working, they can double down and do more. If it's not, they can pivot and maybe do something else that they see is working elsewhere.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chair, if I may follow just really quick. Is that the secret recipe for other states that have succeeded in keeping infant mortality rates low, meaning it's a surgical county by county, depending on geography and demographics? Is that the secret competitive edge for these states that have succeeded in keeping these rates low, or are there other lessons that we can learn from other states that maybe we have not addressed in the legislation? Or just want to be sure that we're, I trust that your team is following up the best trends and science and data on this.
Absolutely, and that's what we see as our role at the state and supporting the locals, is making sure that they are aware of what evidence programming is out there, not only in the state of Indiana, but also nationally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Senator Melton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Doc, for your presentation. Sorry we didn't get a chance to connect when you were in my part of the state. You mentioned the three local health departments, Gary, Chicago, and Fishers. I know that they are to enter into local agreements with the counties.
That's right.
Is legislatively, and I don't remember, did we set any type of criteria for that agreement, any percentage of the funds that's going to come to the counties that opted in?
The legislation told those municipalities and the counties that they were to go into an interlocal agreement, and so it would be up to those counties and those cities to figure out how exactly that funding would be distributed.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate what you had to say. And I noted you've got a program through Fairbanks to help train the departments. Where are we at in terms of finding the staff people? I assume these county agencies are going to need some trained people. It's a happy coincidence that we're here at Ivy Tech. But what are we doing to create more young people who are trained for these public health jobs?
Yeah, so another thing that we're doing as a part of this, but on the side, is we're actually going to have a health workforce council, and part of that is looking at public health. since we're at Ivy Tech, we've already met with Ivy Tech and started to identify some opportunities. I think for the public health field, many people just aren't aware of what the jobs are that are out there. I think an important thing to remember here is that the counties, while sure they will need, they've been underfunded for quite some time, they will need some staff or maybe move people from part-time to full-time. Really, this funding and the exciting part about it is to infuse into the community. So even though maybe they don't have the staff, maybe there's another community-based organization there or a healthcare facility or a hospital that does. So partnering with them to get the funding to them to be able to do the work. I think what we've heard a lot is they know that the work is happening in a part of their county, like maybe a specific city, and so now they'll use the funding to make sure that it goes to every single corner, utilizing the same organization that's already been doing a good job, but just in a small pocket of the community.
All right, thank you. And then a very difficult question. It seems that one of the major health problems we have in this state is obesity. I have the impression that it's one of the hardest to deal with. What is it that your agency can do to get a handle on that and move that?
I agree. It is one of the hardest, but we know all of the poor health outcomes that come from obesity. I often remind people that while 2/3 of our adults are overweight and obese, 1/3 of our kids are. So what are we doing right now to prevent those 1/3 of children and adolescents from growing into the 2/3 of adults, so that they don't eventually get diabetes and hypertension and strokes and all of those things? But I will tell you, this is the metric that I am most excited about, and where we've had our businesses really engage across the state. They also want to address this. Our counties are coming up with some really unique and exciting solutions around, food education, exercise, education for kids, but for families as well, because it only will go so far if the parents aren't educated as well. So this is a metric that I will continue to monitor closely and be able to report back. We know even the data that we have around obesity is not great, so that's our first step, is really getting into the data and making sure that the counties know where they're starting. Not different than infant mortality, some of it is really zip code based, so being to really kind of be able to zero in and know where we need to focus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Yes, Senator Garten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Weaver, thanks for being here today. Thanks for your testimony. If you could, just for the committee and maybe for those listening online and those in attendance here today, just remind us kind of the process for counties opting in or not opting in, and who was that approval or disapproval authority at the local level?
The counties had till September 1st to opt in, and that was by the county commissioners.
Got it, okay. And then, again, just for clarification, does IDOH have any mandate authority over any of those counties with regards to forcing participation?
No, absolutely not. We're 100% here just to provide support and resources and to answer questions if needed.
Sure. And have you or your team, has anybody engaged with the 6 counties who haven't opted in?
We talk to them still regularly and still providing them the same support we always have. We visited 2 of those counties already, had great conversations about what their health needs are locally and what they're doing to address those locally. So we'll continue those same good partnerships.
Good, thank you. And then just 2 more questions, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
With regards to the local public health officers, if IDOH doesn't have mandate authority in this space, do any of the local public health officers have mandate authority with regards to forcing folks into these certain projects?
No. So again, it is shared decision making locally.
Got it. Thank you. And then just last, you talked about outcomes with regards to the investment. As mentioned, it's a historic investment. I think some of the consternation we heard during the debate during this past session was just trying to frame the time. We keep talking about it's going to take time. Can you just help me understand, are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 30 years? And I know it's a moving target. I'm pragmatic about that, but can you frame for the committee what the expectation should be from a General Assembly standpoint with an investment this size?
Yeah, I think we need to first define what metrics we're really hoping to move. And if we're looking to move our national ranking and metrics, that's the one that takes time. That's the 5 or 10 years. But as I mentioned before, we will be able to show improved outcomes locally. So, I shared with you that story about Knox County, very small county, 4 people in their community identified with undiagnosed hypertension. My goal is to come back to you next year and be able to share that number is in the hundreds. And then we can say, okay, while that is a good number. That still may not move, some big national metric, but that means something to us. So I think we'll be able to see that incremental improvement over time and know that this investment is for our future, our kids' future, and our grandchildren's future.
So thank you for that. So again, I just want to restate what I think I heard you say, only because it's the first time I've heard that 5 to 10 year frame. Mm-hmm. So we, the General Assembly, need to look at investing in this for the next 4 to 5 budget cycles continually, is what I think I just heard you say.
Yes.
To really move
yes.
the needle for Indiana. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, I may comment just for the public watching online. As all of us at this table know, it's Medicaid's the fastest growing part of our state budget. And at the rate it's currently going, it's not good. And so we have got to change the health of our public at large. We've got to do that because the cost is growing and growing. So, any further comments? Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have, I believe, Department of Education. If they'd come forward, please.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson and Budget Committee members. My name is Elise Locke, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Student Pathways and Opportunities for the Indiana Department of Education. As required by IC 20-30-8-8, in front of you, you will find IDOE's Alternative Education Programming Report, which includes fiscal information from program organizers beginning with the 2018-19 school year. IDOE's Alternative Education Program supports the well-being of Indiana's non-traditional students in grades 6 through 12 through academics, as well as provides related wraparound services when necessary. Qualifications for schools, programs, and students participating in Indiana's Alternative Education Program are outlined in IC 20-30-8 and further explained in the report. During the 22-23 school year, there were 201 active alternative education programs serving 17,831 students. IDOE's Student Pathways and Opportunities team actively works alongside these programs, which serve our state's most vulnerable students, to deliver key technical assistance and supports. We greatly appreciate your time and consideration of these grants and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for your presentation. I believe next we have on the agenda is the Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority. They'd come forward, please, and make your presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Sherry Ziller. I'm President and CEO at the Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority. Very pleased to be with you all today. With me, I have Aaron Kowalski. He is Senior Associate and Planner with MKSK. They are an urban planning firm based in Indianapolis. And before I turn the floor over to him, he's going to give you a brief outline on the transit development districts that are before your review today, and he's going to briefly talk about how they were created. I would just like to quickly, very quickly, review what has brought us together today. So as you know, there's a $1.5 billion commuter rail expansion project underway in Northwest Indiana right now. The state of Indiana chose to become a major funding partner in this expansion, as it did promise to drive more than $2.5 billion in private development over the next 2 decades. And then that development would then in turn drive increased property tax revenues to our localities in Northwest Indiana, and then greater income and sales tax returns back to the state. And then just like last year when we were in front of you, we are still continuing to see a very significant increase in the real estate market in Northwest Indiana, and our communities are experiencing exponential growth with those development opportunities, and those opportunities are actually turning into real construction projects in our transit development district. So they're not planned, they're not just announced projects, they're actual construction projects. So in terms of the numbers that we're looking at, we are already seeing more than $500 million in new construction, specifically in our communities of Hammond, Munster, and Michigan City, happening occurring right in the transit development districts. And those construction projects are directly related to the commuter expansion projects, the Westlake Corridor, and then the double track initiative. So these projects are really just the beginning of that large financial investment that's going to continue to create thousands of jobs and bring new residents to Northwest Indiana because of the commuter rail expansion projects. So the RDA, we look forward to our continued role in transforming Northwest Indiana. So today we present to you 3 transit development districts. We have the Gary Metro Station, we have the Hammond South Station, and then we have the Dune Park Station in the town of Porter. Each of these have been developed in close cooperation with our host communities, which Aaron's going to expand on a bit in a moment. We really did fine-tune them to reflect the best possible opportunities for development while keeping it in line with our community's visions. So we're very proud of the work we've done, and we thank you for the opportunity to share that with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Aaron Kowalski. Thank you.
Welcome. Please go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having us today. I'll be quick. So everyone has a handout. If you go to the agenda, which is slide 2, we're actually going to skip ahead to the legislation and process, and then we'll give a preview of the 3 boundaries. So if you want to go back to any of these slides at any time, let me know in the Q&A portion, but we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to slide 4. So transit district legislation, so an overview of the transit districts. I know we were here last year, and many of you probably remember that presentation. We brought in August of last year a number of boundaries before you. So this is our second kind of grouping of boundaries. We worked very closely with the local units of City of Gary, City of Hammond, and the town of Porter on 3 boundaries, as Sherry mentioned. So we're here before you to kind of advance those. Again, those are a maximum of 320 acres or 1/2 square mile in area by statute. So we have acreage underneath those for each of these 3 boundaries. If you go to slide 5, the Transit Development District legislation. So the thing that's important here is the TDD Transit District boundaries provide the structure to implement transit-oriented development in Northwest Indiana, and that's exactly what we're seeing in the communities. If you go to slide 6, the legislation itself, as Sherry mentioned, we're already seeing quite a bit of investment, which is increasing opportunities for economic development in the communities. And you can see an example of a couple of the projects in Michigan City that have been announced and are occurring. Next slide, slide 7. As you know, really the whole purpose of this legislation is to increase economic development opportunities in Northwest Indiana, as well as provide an opportunity for the state's return on investment for the rail project to occur more expediently. You go to slide 8, the district process. We went through the same process with the 3 communities this year as we did with the other communities last year. So we had community workshops. We went out into the communities, met with the public, had large boards and a presentation. We had many meetings with the local units, various members of staff, elected officials, and stakeholders. And it really was a collaborative approach, making sure that we took into account each of the individual communities' growth paths. We drafted those boundaries and worked through the summer on those with each of the communities. We also included high-level land use and development planning. So not only are we looking at the boundaries, but we're looking at the development opportunities within the boundaries. The other thing that was a benefit in particular to the Gary downtown boundary is the RDA was fortunate enough to partner with NICD on a separate federally financed pilot planning program that touched not only downtown Gary, but a lot of the other communities along both the double track and Westlake line as well. So we had very detailed planning. This is a brief presentation, but I assure you that there is a lot of research and analysis that has gone into this process. We had the 2 public hearings that were required by statute before the RDA board and got letters of support from each of the communities for the boundaries, worked closely with them. So if you go to slide 9, please. So the requirements by state statute, 1 TDD per train station. The counties have to be associated with the RDA. The parcels are contiguous. They include the station. They're under that 320 acres or half square mile. They can be expanded in the future once. They'll expire in 2047, and we had the required public hearing. So without further ado, the last couple slides, slide 10, is the Gary Downtown Transit Development District. And we worked very closely with the administration, as well as a number of other stakeholders, Senator Melton as well, on this boundary. You can see it's 315.5 total acres in green. And what we've done is looked at areas that we believe would serve the most positive economic development potential for the city. If you go to the next slide, slide 11, you can see those sites identified. So not only have we identified the boundary, but we've identified where we believe investment will occur in the boundary in the coming years. The same is true with Hammond. We had a first Hammond boundary, the Hammond Gateway boundary, brought before you last year. Slide 12 here shows the Hammond South boundary, which connects to the downtown or gateway boundary. This is 201.08 acres total. And if you go to the next slide, slide 13, you can see the sites that we work closely with the City of Hammond and their administration to identify that they believe will see economic development here in the near future. And then finally, slide 14 is the Dune Park transit development boundary. This is situated within the town of Porter. This is a little bit of a unique scenario because the Dune Park station is surrounded by state and national parks. So what we're really trying to do here is leverage opportunities for investment, not only in the benefit of the residents of the town of Porter, but visitors to the state and national parks as well. And if you go to slide 15, you can see the opportunity sites that we've identified as part of that process. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the gentleman? Senator Melton?
Thank you for your presentation, Aaron. Not a question, just a couple of comments. I wanted to just express my excitement and gratitude to the RDA and all the stakeholders that's working with the RDA and all of the communities, and express my gratefulness to this body, right? To my colleagues on the State Budget Committee as well as within administration. Today could be a landmark opportunity as we begin to approve the TDD boundaries. With this significant investment that we started back in 2017 with the double tracking project, and even with this last prior session, this will be transformational. I know we use that word a lot in the legislature, transformational, and but this is going to have a great impact. With the TDD boundary in Gary specifically, I just want to touch on that and connect the dots for this body. Senate Bill 434 that we passed last session is going to be a complement to this. If you can share with the body what that means with 434 and how it relates to the Gary TDD boundary.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So 434 establishes funds for a new Gary Metro station, as well as matching funds for blight elimination. So one of the criteria associated with that bill is that that investment needs to occur within the transit development boundary. So that's the other reason that we had to wait a little longer to create the boundary in downtown Gary, is we wanted to make sure that we thought through that process. The RDA has worked closely with the administration on looking at initial properties for that blight elimination strategy, as well as beginning to look into opportunities for that new station. And all of those things are going to work together to really show to the market that it's time to invest in downtown. And you know, public investment leads private. And so there's some huge opportunities, we believe, and Senator Melton used the word transformative. We believe it's a transformative opportunity.
Because about a year ago, this same group came to visit in Gary, and we talked about the potential for that new station. So again, I wanted to thank everybody that came down, and just all of the community that participated in the conversations to weigh in on developing the borders and the boundaries for the TDD. And as this could potentially be my last state budget meeting, I want to thank the Prince administration for their leadership in helping and allowing us to be collaborative in this process. So I think it's a good thing, not just for Northwest Indiana and Gary, but for the entire state. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Further questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
I believe that completes all the review items, and we do have an agenda that's been placed on the table. At this point, are there any motions to remove any items from the proposed agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda that's on the table currently.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion or any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? My motion carries. I believe, I do want to acknowledge the fact that we do have several reports that have been submitted as required. Is there anything else from committee members that needs to come before the committee at this point? Time. Yes, yes, you may. Representative Porter.
Mr. Chairman, when is the Bureau of Motor Vehicle report coming? It was supposed to be due currently. That was dealing with the information that was going to a third party, taking our license, excuse me, and selling it to third parties for information. We opted out the veterans. That report should be due.
Okay. I don't know, but we'll be glad to try to find out and get it to you,
Okay.
Representative Porter.
They need to report back to us
Okay.
as a budget committee.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. for
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Cadora.
I have a question
Yes,
in
sir.
regards to the IEDC. So I know last couple of times when we met with them on the LEAP Innovation Project, there were concerns. Some information came out that I don't think was presented to us in the last couple of meetings. So I was surprised over the last couple of months to learn, for example, about the tens of millions of waters of gallon that needs to be transported from the Wabash Valley aquifer to the Lebanon area. What is our responsibility as a budget committee, since we had to consent on an agenda for land acquisition and moving dollars for them? I firmly believe they have not been forthcoming on some of these critical pieces of the project that could potentially jeopardize water security, not only for that area, but for the state. So any thoughts on our role, Mr. Chair, as far as this committee? Do we invite them back to get an update, or how do we ensure that they are transparent with the public on this issue?
Well, at this point, as my understanding, I was part of a meeting that those studies are ongoing. Yes, we have initial reports, and I believe once we get that, they'll be coming to us to ask some questions exactly where it all fits in with the budget. That's probably some ongoing discussion, and so I guess the months ahead will tell. But right now, there's still more research just to make sure that what the initial data has shown is what's actually there.
So, and final question, so they're not moving forward with the construction of the pipeline yet. They're gonna come back to us for potentially some kind of approval for that piece, do you think, or?
Well, from my understanding, the cost, if that pipeline goes through, would probably be beyond what any appropriations are. So I think that would be a future type of discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of committee? Well, I want to thank Ivy Tech for the second time this year for hosting this here in Evansville. They're a great host. I appreciate that. They're doing great things here. And so with that, thank you to those attending, and the committee will stand adjourned.